Well, this is how I store my wood back in the day before I did my my kiln. I just put it out here, cut them up into blanks, wax the ends, and let them dry and pray that most of them wouldn't crack. Some timbers don't give you the benefit. Others, you know, some of these like elm, boy, it never cracks up on me for the most part. But I have other stuff that goes through and you'll end up with cracks in the side, especially the magical cherry. You take a look, cherry always seems to crack on the end pits, even when I get the pith all the way out. But I just got a special request from a customer. Actually, that customer is my sister-in-law. She asked for a 9x4" salad bowl. So I'm gonna see what we have out here that's already dry and ready to go. This black locust is still pretty fresh, but I do have some nice walnut up here. I got a couple of big maple chunks and some elm. So ooh, I also have some beautiful beetle kill pine that's been sitting here since 22. That's 3 years old. That should be dry and ready to go. And that stuff turns into some lovely bowls. Let's take a look. We'll pick one here and I'll meet you at the lathe. Hi guys, welcome to my shop. As you saw, we just walked through our wood turning shed there where we're drying stuff out. And I picked this nice big block of walnut. So I milled this, it says on here, in August 23. So it's about 2.5 years sitting out there. And it's going to come in at 10 1/4 in the blank and about 4 1/4 thick. So we should be able to get our 9x4 or 8.5 by 3 3/4 bowl out of this. That's what I've been requested to make. So if you take a look, pretty nice looking blank, no checking. I do have a knot from a branch up here, but there's no cracks in that. And a couple little things here, and there's bark on the bottom. I kind of maximize the width, but we're going to be turning up around that. So I'm going to mount this up on the lathe, four-prong center here. We'll use our 3-bearing live center, and I'm just going to grab it with the Mahoney wood beater. So let's set up and get that rolling. Okay, we are going to start out, like I said, with the 4-prong center. I already have center marked here. Not just a matter of, yeah, it looks pretty straight too. Just kind of roll through, make sure we don't have anything too out of round here, or cattywampus. Looks pretty good. All right, clamp it down. Oops, I've got to move you just a wee bit there so I can lock this in place. Hopefully is that pretty good? You guys see okay? Can you see okay? I want to make sure. Okay, so I got that clamped down pretty tight. Wood is a little soft for walnut, interestingly, but it's very dry. Got the speed turned all the way down to 0. We'll stand over to the side. Just got to see where we can get it speed-wise. Yeah, we moved right to 1,000 RPM with no vibration, so we shouldn't have any issues there. I'm going to use a standard cast iron tool rest. Now, there's a lot of preferences on tool rests. I have the robust with the steel bar across the top, and I really do like that in long spindles. I found that the cast iron, this particular cast iron when I'm doing bull roughing, I just particularly care for it a little bit more, just a preference. I don't think there's any right or wrong there. Let's go ahead and spin this up and see if we can get her nice and round and see if there's the blank is as nice as it looks. I know this camera angle is awful. I apologize, but it will get better. Stick with me. Again, this is very dry, and this is the Mahoney wood beater. Oh, we do have some cracking checks in there, and that doesn't look that much like walnut to me. I marked it walnut. It looks like walnut bark. Must just have a pretty interesting piece this close into the from the sapwood out to the heart. That's some pretty grain, but we do have some light checking in here. Let's see if we turn past that. We got past this bark anyway, so that probably won't be a big deal. You know, I like to stop a lot, show you guys the progress we're making. Still a few little radial cracks in here. That does look like apple to me. But the bark doesn't look like apple, and I haven't had an apple tree this big before. That looks like apple. Ooh, we got some really cool chatoyancy here. Some compression figure that's really pretty. Well, let's get past all this bark first. Keep rounding out. And give us an idea if we're going to have to do any filling or anything on this. This is supposed to be a salad bowl, so I don't want too much filling. My sister-in-law requested a very specific bowl. So that was my fault. I had pressure going the wrong direction. Still into the little crack here. Still into the bark, so we're going to get past that. These cracks are going away, so I think we're going to be good there. Ooh, oh, big one opened up over here, though. I didn't see any of that when we looked at the blank there in the shed. So let's get around the edge here. Take a couple of big upward passes. Just see if we can, if those cracks are going to be in there the whole way. And I might have to pick another blank. Still be a pretty bowl. But I generally try not to have any big defects in food bowls. A little bit of wobbly bounce there. Tighten her down a bit. And I'm going to come and get this edge here so we can start with round, get nice full passes. Crack, crack, little crack in here. Don't know if we'll be able to turn past those, to be honest. I do want to get rid of all of this bark, though. The bark we don't want the bark in this. Seeing quite a few little stress cracks and bigger checking deep in the bowl, which is interesting to me. I didn't expect that, to be honest. After it's sealed up, it looks so nice from the outside. So one of the things I have a lot of people ask me in little direct messages and stuff is about what I'm doing. How do I keep on the bevel? See, we get nice round up here. We get a little bit of rough right here. Still one flat spot. I think you can see it from there, just teeny. But the whole trick, really, and you probably heard this a million times, is to find your anchor. You anchor it, you get your bevel, and then move your hips. So the whole thing is attached to your body, and you're sliding your body the direction. You're not moving the outside of the handle here. You're not moving your wrist. You're sliding around with the whole weight of your body, keeping it anchored. You don't want too much pressure on the wood itself. That's not part of the goal. We want to keep that pressure down on the tool rest and the bevel just gliding, or as Stuart Batty says, floating across the edge. You can ride that bevel, but the best way to do it is going to always be the weight of your body anchored to your hip, and you slide it around the edge. Just transfer your body weight. Now we're going to go take a lighter cut this time. So I'm just moving my body weight. Taking a pretty aggressive cut. This is the Mahoney from Carter & Sons wood beater. I'm going to go out and take a slightly less cut here so we can get a finishing cut as we get closer in. And I'm getting over the tool rest more than I want to be. So a cut like that should be very pretty. I've left a little rim up here because sometimes I like to add some detail. But mostly we're just trying to see, are we through any of the major cracks? I still have that here. I'm going to take a downhill pass with a different gouge. But we're through all of our main checks. We have one here that we're going to get rid of with the other pass. We have a knot that we're going to have to fill with some CA before we proceed. And there's a teeny crack here. So I'm going to actually do well, we're going to have to establish a tenon anyway. So let's go ahead and get in closer to our tenon size. You hear that change in sound as I get towards that bark? So again, this has got to be a big, stable bowl. It's beautiful, but I'm pretty sure this is apple, guys. I'm sorry for calling this walnut. I have it marked walnut. I did mill a big apple at the same time, and the apple wood is just one of the most beautiful. It just turns out so lovely. I'm going to get a small 1/2 inch, oops, that's the 5/8. I'm going to get a 1/2 inch gouge, and I'm going to do a little downhill cut to get past this just to get my final shape. A little more round. We still want a wide bottom here. Now let's see if we have any checks, any cracks. Nothing. You can see the difference here. Here's my uphill cut with the Mahoney. Here's the downhill cut with the Crown 1/2 inch. So you can see it cuts way better uphill, obviously. But we'll get around that and take that cut. I just wanted my shaping cut. I can really control my matching my bevels better personally going downhill. Now we'll try a real light pass uphill here. There's a knot right there. You can hear the knot. It's not a perfect cut or pass, but it does clean it up, and you don't see that same tear out you got with the downhill cut. Okay. Up here we have a little bit of, it's not punky, but it is spalted, so the wood has changed color right here. And I could feel a slight texture difference, but it's not terrible. This bark is super tight and actually should add a little interest. We'll still round that over probably during the sanding process. And a little bit of ring shake right here. A little bit of separation. And that knot that you hear the noise coming from these knots. So let's go ahead and stop for a minute here. I'll fill those with some CA and some accelerator, and then we'll take another couple final passes, tighten up this tenon and flip it around and hollow it. Pretty simple project. Okay, we've got the knot up here filled. I think you can see that from there. And we got the big knot up near the rim filled up. I went ahead and let that dry up good, use some accelerator on it. This one really sucked up the CA. So I'm now going to make sure we're tight. I'm going to do some pull cuts around the side here, shear edge. A lot of these cuts that I'm making right now are shaping cuts. I'm also trying to smooth out any tool lines, just kind of see what the wood's going to do for me here. Now I'm going to come around. Got to reset my tool rest here. My goal now is going to be to take off that rim. I'm not going to leave the rim on the final bowl. So I want to lock myself down, give myself the best chance for success. A couple of very light passes because there's a lot of CA up here. Now, those light passes, same thing. You still lock it to your hip, right along the edge. You see we're getting a nice look up here. It's filled in pretty well, and I just have to keep getting down further. But again, you take very light passes so we don't rip out our CA. And that little filling is going to make a difference for us. Okay, we still have the other knot I have to contend with here. You find a lot of turners have their own preference on what they use to shear scrape. I can use the wing of any one of my Irish grind tools without a problem. Some folks have like a very specific tool they want. Now we pulled most of the CA off of this, got it flush. There's still a couple little pockets, and the same up here. So I just want to make sure this is filled really well before I get to the sanding portion. I'm going to take a refiner type scraper, and we'll do I'll get a nice sharp burr on it, and we'll do one little pass on that for our final shaping, and then we'll sand it. For this, since it's a solid bowl, we're going to use our shop-made food-safe material. I'm not going to use the grit on this. I'll use pitas first, get all the pitas off. Because of this little more open pore in this apple wood, I don't like it to fill with all that pumice. So we will fill that. We'll use pitas after we get our final refined shape, and then we'll use our shop shine on it. I'm going to sand this all the way to 600, which is kind of unusual for a solid bowl, but I want it to come out with, when she opens the box, I want her to go, oh, wow. That's pretty and shiny. So let me go back to filling this. I know you guys have seen me do it a million times. There's a few videos, one called, cheap way to fill cracks, and another way of using CA as an embellishment. I could put those links down below in the description for you, but I don't want to drag this video out too long here. So let me get on to that. I'll be right back. Okay, I went ahead and moved you guys around here to the top so you could actually see the filling here on these knots a little bit better. And you can see we've got proud all the way around here. Couple little divots where it's soaking in, so we'll take some light passes on that and see how that looks. Again, I'm using the wing of my 1/2-inch bow gouge here, pressure down on the tool rest, and just slowly pull it towards myself. You don't want to close it too much. But I get a nice sharp edge on there, and that should peel off that and give us a flat ready to sand. And you can see where it's still shiny inside there is where I need to fill to get a flatter surface. This one's perfect here. There's no nothing left over. So again, I'll stop and fill that. We'll go ahead and leave it running this time so you can see just the end result here. I'm going to come over wherever it's lower than the top surface, make it a little bit proud. And that will give us a nice flat, full feeling there. And when you run your hand across it, it'll just feel like glass. And that is our goal. We don't want any defect in the wood to end up impacting the final product. So if we can come around and like right up here, you see where it started, a little bit of ring shape coming up through that knot. And this is the knot, not the pith. The pith had been completely cut out of this. So now we're just kind of dealing with a knot. We just want to make sure that we come around that, and that when you run your hand over it, at the end, it's contiguous and smooth like the rest of the bowl. Now I give that a couple seconds to set up really well so we're not splashing all over our mask. Right, and I'll be right ready back for the next pass here. The little shear scrape, real light passes. Make sure that smoothed out nice. It did. That one did. I'll look at the chatoyancy there. That's going to be really pretty. Okay, for the most part, I'm really happy with the shape. It's a very simple swooping bowl shape with a wider flat bottom, so we'll have a nice stable base for salad. I'm going to go ahead now and just take the rim down. Let's see if that straightened that up nice. Don't have any low spots. Came up through there. Little tear out right there. That's sandable. Shandable. I see a little bit of low spot right here, so I still want to take it down maybe another 1/16 or so. We really want that start out nice and flat for us. We can do that from the other direction as well when we go to the hollowing, but I like to start out with a flat rim before I start to sand. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on turbo, set up my dust collector, and we'll get the sanding on this. I'll bring you back when we're ready to put on the grit and the shine, so we can kind of walk through my process for that. I think you guys will, at least from the feedback I've gotten so far, it's been useful for a lot of folks, just figuring out how I finish my bowls the fast way and sometimes the long, slow, painful way. But you will find that there's 100 ways to do this, and the way I do it works for me, and hopefully it'll give you guys some ideas on how you can do it and make it easy for you. So let's get you on to time lapse and get to sanding. Okay, we've sanded it up to 600. There's a lot of fine, interesting grain, a lot of feathers and chatoyancy and interesting things happening in here. And it also, like right here, that line is smooth to the touch, but you could still see something in there. So we're going to work that out with some pitas. And this is an abrasive grit. It's called Pita's True Grit. I think I've talked about it quite a bit. But I have my own shop grit as well. It's got an F2 pumice in it. And I actually like it. I think it's a good grit, and we'll be doing a little video on how I make that. But sometimes when I'm making softer woods, I really like to use the pitas. And I'll come across any of these areas where I feel like something needs to be, a little extra attention needs to be paid to a sanding line or something. And I'll work in a little extra of it before I pick the speed up. Because every now and then these fine pores, and you can keep sanding past them, and all you're doing is you're getting the annular ring, the hard part of the wood, and the soft wood inside still continues to stay either bruised or scratched in some way. I have never quite mastered figuring that out before I get the piece on and start sanding it. There's some people who look at a piece of wood and know exactly how they're going to have to finish it. I am not one of those guys, so I usually have to get on and go, okay, we're going to do a little hand rubbing on this before we get going fast. But I just look for areas where, like over the CA, we want that to shine and pop really nicely. And so I just look to see if there's any other places where I've missed something in the wood that I might be able to address with the buffing, applying this material here. So I'm going to go ahead now and get well, I think I still have enough towel left here, as long as it doesn't have anything gooey on it. And I'll fold my towel up really good. And we're going to start out in, obviously going forward, at about 650 RPM. And I start at bottom down here, and I'm just going to work that into the unit. Now some woods, especially the harder woods, like a really nice hard maple, is not going to need as much application as something soft and porous that's really sucking up a lot of your material. So you can see just by looking at that there's going to be a spot in here that is softer, that didn't pick up as much of the grit. So I'll stop as I'm going over it and work that in and make sure that we've got good coverage all the way across the piece. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I'll even go back in and resand an area if I feel like, oh, I did something wrong with the sanding, which does happen. Happens quite often. Sometimes I'll come back and sand a piece twice, even after I finished. I'm like, oh, I could have done better. I missed something there. The lighting wasn't quite right. Other times I'll try to catch it while I'm on the, especially softwoods, softer woods like this apple. This is not a super hardwood. It's probably right up there. I would probably put it right up there with poplar in terms of how hard it is on the lathe. And I do love turning poplar. I know I'm one of the few. Nowhere near as soft as pine, but it's probably between pine and poplar in terms of how hard this apple happens to be. But you can see there's some beautiful patterns, almost like a spider web. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to go back to putting it on with some speed. We'll find our spots, our low spots and stuff, where the wood's got a different look as we work our way up it. Now when I'm using my own shop grit, it's a lot thicker. Whew, there's some static going on there. It's gooier, I guess is a better word than thicker. This is actually pretty hard stuff. The shop grit that I make is quite a bit softer. Got a lot of mineral oil in it stuff, so it seems to soak in, but it also takes that F2 pumice with it in a lot of applications. Let's see how we're doing there. You can see how it just is not the same as rubbing it in by hand. So I'll go through and make sure that everything looks uniform before I actually get to the buffing portion of buffing this material off. But I'm just going to go through and make sure it's all one uniform color. There's some compression chatoyancy in there. That's really pretty. You can see where that feather from the knot is going to be a nice accent on that bowl as well. Well, I won't keep boring you guys with this. I'll probably speed through it all, but I just want to make sure you see the process. I know a lot of times turners will show like, oh, I just pressed the cloth onto it after a little bit of boiled linseed oil, and look, it's perfect. And most of the time they're having to do this off camera. They're going to rub things in, they're going to polish it up, they're going to look for drier spots in the wood that are soaking up their material, and you have to go back over them a few times. And again, this is not even a polish. I make sure it is a polish, this is not a finish. This is a grit that we're getting in there, trying to soak it into all the spots where there's softer, different densities of the wood. And again, I told you I'm going to put you on speed up, and here I am jabbering away. But it's kind of, I think it's good sometimes to see the process. That takes quite a bit more work than some people let on in their finishing processes. Like here, we've got a spot in here that really is going to have to go with the grain to polish out those finer scratches. And since the grain is swooping around in a bunch of different ways, you can see where the challenges come as you rub it in. Right here, the grain takes an upward tilt, and you can see the different line right there between the two. So I got to work that in so we can blend those two areas where the grain shifted directions and changed how it wanted to turn to get the optimum finish for it. Again, this is going to be a salad bowl. It's going to be dented up. It's going to develop a patina after a few weeks of use. This is not a gallery piece sitting on someone's as a centerpiece at a table. This is going to be a functional utility bowl, but you still want the best impression you can get as you get out there. So I'm going to go ahead now and grab a clean shop cloth, put away my pitas, and from there we will buff this off at very high speed until the towel comes back completely clean. And then we can go to applying our shop shine, as I like to call it, which is our mineral oil, carnauba, beeswax, and we have some lemon essence in there too. Makes it smell nice and seems to soak into the wood better. So I'm moving myself up to about 1500 RPM right there. They're at 1442, and just with the towel holding it against my palm, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to work this material off. And you'll start to see a nice shine develop as we work that wax off. Whew, static is getting me. This is my second time I've gotten zapped. So that's how much material came off in that first pass. So we'll just keep folding our towel over until we come back with a clean towel. I've got quite a bit of pressure. We're letting friction do the work. Very careful, those edges are sharp. You can see it cut right into the paper. If you put too much pressure on, that's going to cut right into you. Again, never wrap the towel around any part of your body. Whew. Static, static, static. And that's our initial polish. And now we'll actually put some shine on there, which is a finish and a polish. And we'll apply that with the same cloth. I've got a tin of it over, or a little Tupperware I've made. So this is our shop shine. And again, the ratios on this are different for everybody, has their own blend. This one here is 70%, and I'm talking about by volume. So I'm just using a regular measuring cup. So let's call it, putting in a quart, 32 ounces of mineral oil. And then with that, I would end up putting in 24 ounces of beeswax, and then 2 ounces of carnauba, and about 2 teaspoons of the lemon essence. Again, I'll do a full video on how I put that together. And we're gonna apply that by hand first, and we'll let it set up a little bit, and then we'll buff it off with a clean terry cloth. And the terry cloth will be like your typical Costco car, where you get a big old pack of them, the yellow terries for washing your car, or detailing or something like that. I bought 1 pack of those in 21 when I moved to this shop, and I still have 7 or 8 of them in the plastic bag waiting for me to use. I mean, they last a long time. I don't wash them very often. They don't seem to come back quite as good after you wash them first time, so usually I'll retire them, wash them, and actually move them to the car wash station out in the garage when I'm washing and detailing the cars. All right, I think you guys got the idea. So let's let that set up. We'll come back, buff it off with the terry, and then we'll be ready to flip her around. All right, I've let it dry up here for a bit. I have it turned up, getting right around 1500 RPM. I have that terry I was telling you about. Now the secret to this is you don't wrap it around your hand, guys. I've watched some terrible things happen. We're just gonna put the pressure against it. We can even fold it over and hold it between our thumbs and forefingers like this, and just buff this in and off. And you can see, you should be able to see a line right up here where the buffing happens. And what I'm doing is I'm applying some pressure so we get some heat for that wax, melts into the pores, and I can watch down below by my fingers here, kind of like the mirror finish start to develop out. When I can actually see a nice mirror reflection as I'm buffing it, then I know my work here is done. Now I'm going to tighten up the tenon here. I didn't really put a tenon on this yet. I just wanted to see how the wood was going to look. I was so excited about turning walnut today, I didn't realize how I grabbed myself. Look at that chatoyancy right there around that knot. Isn't that pretty? That's pretty. We got all sorts of neat little radial fingers out there, and then this interesting spiderweb pattern. On the inside, it should be really, really pretty. So let's go ahead and put a dovetail on my tenon, and then we'll flip it around and hollow her out. I wish that I felt confident hollowing dry timber, and I might go ahead and give that a shot. I'll maybe leave the camera rolling. We can maybe get this mounted, and I can just try to get a small bowl blank out of this. It's such pretty wood. I'd hate to turn it into shavings and throw it on the floor, although I do really enjoy making shavings. So either way, it'd be a win-win for me. But I think I could get one more matching bowl out of this if I get lucky with the coring system. I've just had some terrible luck trying to core dry wood, but this stuff is pretty soft. I think it won't catch on me, and if it does, well, we'll know, because I'll have the camera rolling. Again, probably won't make the video, the whole thing. If I do, I'll just speed it up. Coring is not fun to watch. So I'm just coming here with the little pointy gouge, and I'm gonna put a dovetail on it just by eye. Nice flat surface for the jaws to rest against right there. And I've left a flat surface at the very base of my tenon,
but I've also left a concave around there because I want the bowl to have a nice thick base to sit on. I'm going to go ahead and flatten off the tenon a bit here, just so it'll sit flat in my jaws. You can see it's bouncing around a little bit. I don't want to take too much of the meat off my tenon, especially if they're going to be coring. And I also like leaving a perfect little dot in the middle so when I turn it around to take that foot off later, although I could use the cold jaws on this one. We'll see how it goes. I might use the cold jaws so I can get a really nice sand, and then I'll texture the bottom and we'll engrave my sister-in-law's name on the bottom. That might be cool. Let her know it was her gift bowl. So let me set up for coring, and I'll bring you guys back around. 800 RPM. So we did get our small little 6-inch, beautifully cut, smaller bowl blank out of the apple. So we didn't get up with all the shavings on the floor. We also didn't end up with a big blank. I was a little nervous about the wood, making sure that I could get in there. I could have gone a little bit deeper, but gives us a nice spot to start, and we got a successful coring with our core system. So let's count that as a win, huh? So now we'll take traditional cuts on this one here. Get down to the bottom. Obviously, we don't have any tailstock supporting like that, and we've got a nice tenon that survived the coring. So we're going to start at about 1,000 RPM, and we were coring at 800, by the way, which is what I think Carrie Corney recommended. But I have to go back and look at that video again. I really need to get better at that. Got a good tip, so we'll take a few cuts before we move over to another bowl gouge. A little bouncy with the knots in there. As we hit this, it wants to bounce around a bit. Doesn't feel like that wants to leave anytime soon. You got a little bit of tear out and stuff, but it's cutting pretty well. So I'll keep swooping the sides down. I'm going to leave this pretty chunky. It's a nice big salad bowl. You want it to be heavy on the table for the user. But we'll switch over to the 5/8 inch bowl gouge this one. Still too chunky, but I just want to see what we're dealing with. The knot's starting to go away there. Still have it up here. We might need to do some filling. And I still have plenty of meat down at the bottom there. So I might take a couple of inside out passes here. You can actually hear it hopefully on the camera there. Make sure you're, oh, don't know, dust all over you. You can hear as we cut down into this, how it's starting to change into where it's cutting out down here. So I'm going to get a nice sharp gouge. I still have a ways to go. So before we start taking our finishing cuts, I'll just finish hogging this out. Whew, apple. Basically just sawdust. See, I cleared up that tear out pretty easy. So we'll just have to take some nice light cuts. Still have probably about, I could take 3/4 of an inch more. I'm going to stop now though and sharpen up my other gouges. Okay, I've put a fresh, just did it by hand, quick edge on this one so we can kind of get some thinner cuts here. be a nice cut there. Something ready to sand. And we just got to pull the bottom down into the right thickness here. You can really feel it wanting to bounce off. There's a lot of flex in the wood. Okay. I have my wall thickness here, I do. So now we're just going to round that bottom out, and I'm going to do that with the Glen Lucas bottom feeder. Pull this in a little bit tighter here. Got plenty of room. I've got a good edge on Glen Lucas still from the last project, so let's just go ahead and blend those corners. Still have a little lip right there, and we still got plenty of meat to work with, so and I can feel quite an interesting vibration. Let's see if we've got a crack or something here that I'm dealing with. Don't see anything. I'm gonna get the smaller gouge out just to try to get rid of, blend this down here a little better. But you can see here that it's out of round. Yeah, there's something bouncing around right in there. I don't know how this is. We got a little line there, but that's not bad. But I would like to have it better than that. Let's see if our big grizzly scraper, if we've got a good edge on that, or if I need to go back to the station real quick. I still have a super sharp edge. So we're a little low for that one. So let's make sure we're on the center line. And then we're going to take a super light pass with the handle slightly elevated. That inside bowl scraper, so we'll make it all the way to that edge. I just want to see how it's cutting. It's cutting good. We got a little bit of tear out there, so we just got to blend that edge, and I'll dish the bottom a little bit more. You can still see a little lip right here. That's the last thing we need to take care of. A little lump right there too that I'm not nuts about, but I think we can get in there with our bowl and smooth that out with our inside bowl scraper. This is that grizzly tool. I've talked about it a few times. Take a real light passes, handles elevated. I'm still seeing it, but I'm also feeling the bowl flexing on me as we get into that spot. And I don't like that. Okay. All I'm going to do now is pull into this spot here. Just some light pulls so we don't have an icky little lump there. And then I'm going to have to probably sand that other. Okay, I think that's about to get it. Got one ridge right there that will come down from the top with. We're not going to use a scraper for that. And one little bumpy right here that I don't like, so we'll take care of that on the outside. Again, slightly elevated handle. And to the bottom. Now this stuff sands very well. I might use the 80 grit bowl gouge to finish up smoothing these walls up here since it's flexing so much. And I think that might be the best look for that one, or at least the easiest way for me to get a really nice finish inside. So yeah, I think I'm going to take a little bit of a shortcut. Let me get out the caliper though. It's a little bit big for me to get my hands all the way around. I got this little digital widget here I picked up off of Amazon for, I think it was $15 or something like that, but it'll allow me to get between there and, oh, can I? Well, get me close. You know, I still have, I could still take about a 1/2 inch off of that, and it'd be a 1/2 inch all the way around. At the rim up here, we're at 0.68, so about a 1/4 inch, and we'd have a uniform wall thickness. So I'm going to go ahead and go the extra mile and do that. I'm going to use the bottom feeder for this. Can you guys hear how I was rattling around there? The wood's just flexing too much for me to get a better cut than that. So what I'm going to do now, I've got a nice dished bottom. I'm going to get out a 3-inch Abernet disc in 80 grit and use the old 80 grit bowl gouge. Sometimes that's what we got to do. I'll also get a good sand on it, see if any of this stuff needs filled. Since it's going to be a food bowl, we want to make sure that, you know, any areas around knots are filled with CA so that they're easy to keep clean. All right, I'll put you guys on the turbo, time warp speed, ludicrous speed, whatever we're calling it these days, and make sure that if anything happens that's crazy, you'll at least get a chance to see it, because I have made some boo-boos, and some of my boo-boos are more entertaining than my stuff where I'm trying to actually show you how I do it. Everyone loves a good boo-boo. I'm going to just, like I said, start with an 80 grit, 3-inch foam pad, and I need to get a fresh 80 out, so I'll be right back. Sanding to do there. Like I said, I ended up using the 80 grit bowl gouge, as we call it, the old 80 grit sandpaper, to get in and do a little bit of shaping on the softer wood. Got a couple of decent cuts. We got a nice smooth shape down there, and there's no bumps or ridges or anything like that, so I'm pretty happy with it. But again, it took me a lot longer sanding than it should. And now I'm going to use a little of the shop made grit on the inside here, mostly because I want that mineral oil to soak deep in, and we have so many fine, teeny cracks from the 400 sandpaper, not cracks, I'm sorry, sanding marks for the 400 sandpaper. And I really want to be able to buff those out really nicely. And I need a little bit coarser grit than the peat to do that. So I'm just going to rub in what's left of my grit here, make sure it soaks into all of the grain everywhere. And then we'll pick the speed way up. Again, this is mostly mineral oil and the F2 pumice. So we'll let that kind of, the mineral oil soak in. It'll leave the pumice on the outside here. So it'll help us get a nice shine on it. I'm also going to slather up our rim here. I really want this to soak up the mineral oil portion, and a little bit of wax. There's, you know, some beeswax in there too, so it'll get into the pores and settle up, and we'll be able to heat it up with some friction to really put up a nice shine. This will be an easy bowl to maintain. A little walnut oil probably be my recommendation. Yeah, for using the salad bowl, probably the best way to go. Okay, we got our towel all gooed up here. Got that thing all saturated. I'll get if I see anything else here before we get to the fun part. doing some circular patterns around the areas where there's CA so we can make sure we get all of the 400 grit sandpaper scratches out of that. Because we do have some fill right there around you see this limb and this knot over here. And that's just to hold the knots in place and to make sure it's easy to clean. So I'm going to start out right at 1,000 RPM. And we're going to work in our material, holding my wrist, thumb and forefinger holding my towel, so if it gets caught on something, the towel will go flying and out my fingers. You're probably tired of me saying it, but I've just seen some tragedies where people wrap a towel around their hand, and you can really hurt yourself. You don't want a dislocated finger or keep you away from your lathe for too long. So I'm just going to kind of work that in. There's a little bit of pressure. You can feel the heat through the towel, kind of looking for that. You figure out what works best for each wood. You can hear that moving around there. That's that knot. Get on the outside here and work that out. And we still have a very dirty towel, so we'll start with a clean inspection now and see if we're going to slowly work all that out. When we come back with a clean towel, we'll be ready for our food safe wax. This is also food safe here, won't hurt you, but I prefer the heavier beeswax content to the one with the grit in it. Now I've done a couple of bowls with just mineral oil. When I'm cranking something out, I only sand to 220. Mineral oil is my go-to on that, and I really like the way that works. Now we're just getting some wax off. I'm not seeing anything dark coming off. And let's keep going until there's nothing. And I hit this outside edge with 400 just to take the sharpness off, and the inside we slowly rolled over just with sandpaper. So you can see that is not our final finish, but that looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? So what I'm going to do with this now is get out the wax and load up a big layer of wax on it, and I'll bring you right back for that. Okay, I have my microphone off. Hopefully you guys can still hear me well. I caught the microphone on the cord, and it went flying. I'm going to have to figure out if I can put it back together or not, or I'll be making another call to our friends at Amazon. Just was plugging in something and I flipped around quick, hat caught on something. Just silly mistake. But you can see how the shop shine is soaking into the wood even still after we sealed it with the other version, with the kind of the grit version. So it kind of soaks in, ends up with a very, very nice look, and it also smells wonderful. It's got kind of a lemony vibe. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let that harden up. Usually takes 10-15 minutes. It's about 82, 83 degrees in my shop right now. And then I will buff that off with the linen mop on the drill. So we'll be right back for that with the magic of YouTube. Okay, I got the linen mop here at the end of my drill. It's my little cheap Ryobi. We're just going to buff that out. And that should be our finish. Now, of course, that looks beautiful right now. That's really what you're looking for. Someone takes that out of the box, brings it back from the craft fair. It's gorgeous. Then they start to use it. It'll develop its own patina over time, which is generally gives it its a kind of heirloom vibe. You know, makes it feel good. So I'm really happy with that. I think that turned out beautifully. I'm sure my sister-in-law will be thrilled. I'm going to flip this around, take off that tenon. Again, we're going to leave a slightly concave bottom, no fancy bead or anything, but I will put a texture ring on it. That's kind of a thing. And then we'll sign it for her and get it in the box. I'll get it up on the spinner for you too, of course. You guys can get a final look at it. Let me grab the roller here so you guys can see where we're at. It turned out at 10 inches, 10 1/8 inches by 4 1/8 inches. So that's a nice size serving bowl. If you're not having a giant family over, you know, some salad for a family of 4, that should do the job right there. All right, let's flip around, get that tenon off. Okay, my standard is using this redwood fence post. Again, I like using a softer wood when I'm doing my tenon removals. I know some people have big blocks of maple and stuff, but this apple is pretty soft wood. So we want to just use a comfortable cloth inside like this terry and a regular 3-bearing live center for the end here. And all I'm going to do is take the clean side of my towel on the inside of my bowl, like so. And I put it around the top here, go back to our little, oops, got you guys knocked there. Got you all wrapped up. Put you back into the same hole we started with. This is already a little out of round, so I don't expect it to be terribly concentric. This wood is so soft, I could just sand this off. I could put it in the cold jaws. There's a lot of options we have for that. But I think I'll be able to get the nice texture ring on the bottom and a spot for us to sign it without having to do anything crazy. So let's get the face mask on. I have a filthy face mask. And my air gun for my air compressor. You guys probably hear it going off all the time. You have to keep taking it out. It just stopped doing what it's supposed to. See? If I hold it back just a little bit, it'll won't make noise, but I can't do that. So. Now the whole time I was sanding, I was using my micro air respirator. But when I'm talking to you guys and just turning, I have the old Bell and Howell helmet on right now. That way I can still be heard and I can keep chips from hitting me in the face or something. So let's see how this looks. It's gonna be a little loud probably, but that was not spinning very concentrically. But good enough for what we're about to do here. That's how far around that thing went. Kind of crazy if you think about it. It's dry wood, just had a lot of tension in it. So I'm gonna go ahead at 1200 RPM here and just take this foot off here. I'm gonna leave a bit of that meat on so I can sand it. Again, this apple is so easy to sand. Quick look at that. See, that looks nice. Looks nice. So I will get out the Ron Brown's best. Get in here and I'm going to pull a spiral in there, kind of a bigger one. So we'll slow it down quite a bit. So the faster you go, the tighter your pattern is. The slower you go, the wider your pattern is. So I want kind of a wide sunburst. So I'm going to come in at 500 RPM. Look how slow that looks now. One little crank. Slight angle on the Ron Browns. You can't see it behind the, it's this angle coming in on the tool rest. Let it start to spin. And then a little pressure, pull it out towards my edge. That should have given us a nice groove pattern, see? Nice swooping pattern. And then like I normally do, I will put a little, with the point tool, just a point tool, I'm gonna delineate where that pattern starts. Just give it a little decorative look. And on the outside, I will do the same. That gives us a pretty nice look. See, the outside rim is the main spot it's going to be sitting on. Inside of this is all concave. We'll work off our little nub here. It's already fallen apart with the pointy gouge. Pointy gouge, pointy gouge. Here we go. Just a little Benjamin's Best with a super fine point on it. It's great for pulling off nubs. And after that, I'll be able to just nip that off with an 80 grit sanding disc. And then I will cover it in beeswax and take it over to the lemon wheel and buff out the bottom, and we'll sign that center, and I'll take you right back when we're ready for that. Well, there she is, all finished up. Got one 10 by 4 inch applewood salad bowl. A couple of filled knots, and some lovely grain and chatoyancy. Just a beautiful piece. And this is from my wife's sister, and it's going out to her today per a special request for a specific salad bowl size. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and picked up a little something, or at least figured out how I do it. If you did, I'd sure appreciate a like or a subscribe. That has always helped me out. And boy, if you share the video, that helps my channel grow quite a bit. If you leave me a comment, let me know what you liked about the video, what you'd like to see me change, maybe how you would have approached this project differently. Love to hear from you. In the meantime, get out there and turn something.